Hi and welcome to today's episode of Owning It, where we're incredibly fortunate to be joined by two of the directors of CapEQ, Doug Edmunds and Mark Sapsford. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, we start every one of these podcast interviews by asking the same three questions, so I'll direct it to you both and I'll allow you to answer in your own terms. Who are you? What do you do? And the final and most important one is, why do you do it?
Hi, I'm Mark Sapsford. So I am a partner in CapEQ. I look after our clients' journeys in probably four ways. So looking if they're trying to sell their business, if they're looking to acquire a business, if they're looking for fundraising, or they're looking for development of their business and guidance in their business. And why do I do it? Because I really enjoy it. I really enjoy working with clients around the world to understand their passion and understand their businesses. And I get a real kick out of being part of their journey. So that's probably why I do it.
Thanks, Mark. Doug?
I'm very similar. So I'm Doug Edmunds. I'm a partner at CapEQ Advisors, CapEQ as we're called, as we trade as. Yeah, as with Mark, the services we offer are to shareholders of kind of small and mid-market businesses, advising them on various stages of their journeys, up to and including exiting and moving on to some other projects in their life. Why do I do it? Again, as with Mark, we love what we do, don't we? I think it's the kind of the entrepreneurial journey is an exciting one. It's exciting for people doing it, but it's also, I guess, from a slightly safer distance, really exciting to watch and help with. And I think we genuinely are passionate about helping people who are on that journey.
Brilliant. So the intriguing question for me is the EQ part of the business name.
Yeah, barming. So I think from a corporate finance perspective, we know of all the stories of big M&A transactions and what have you. But the subtleties, and I've been fortunate enough to do transactions all over the world, and what you find even with language is that the huge amount of transactions are done because of the emotions that are involved in this process. Yeah. It becomes about egos and just the underlying feelings of a business owner or the purchaser. And at every given point in time, yes, the money's important, yes, the numbers and the structure's important, but if you're unable to understand the emotions and what's becoming key, and it may not be even said in a room, but if you're not able to interpret and understand those feelings that are going on in the room, a transaction often doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen for the right reasons. And I think for us and in our name, it is understanding that emotional intelligence, understanding people immaterially of who the business or who the acquirer is. It's how those two businesses are going to come together, and it's incredibly important for us as a B Corp to make sure that two businesses are going to come together and go on and grow, and not make loads of people redundant. It's just about that development of business. And so understand that emotion, we'll understand how those two businesses are going to come post us leaving. When we leave and walk away and the transaction is done, it's how does that business go on and develop and grow. And with that emotion intelligence and understanding, we get the right fit and ethos for our clients, or vice versa. What they're acquiring, we make sure that the business they're acquiring is the right business for them, so it will go on and grow.
I mean, look, deals get done by people wanting to do a deal with the person the other side of the table. That's how you get a win-win in the business world. And I think, as well as that event in itself, which is a lot of the time what we're there to facilitate. Yeah. So making that dynamic work is really important part of the job of us doing our job well. That starts right at the beginning of any engagement. And it's for any business person, is making a personal connection for us to get a client in the first place. It helps if you can create a relationship quickly. So that's great. And then, picking apart, actually getting, I suppose, an honest answer, drilling down into what people are trying to achieve out of the next, whether it's, I want to exit my business in 6 months, or I want to do that in 6 years. And this is what that journey, I think, is going to look like. And this is these are the stages that I'm going to need to go through, and can you help me with these? Yeah. And that's what we've been brought in to do. But you don't always get the same answer from them, depending on the questions you ask and when you ask them, and finding out genuinely what the drivers are behind what they're trying to achieve is really important. So doing that well helps us to help them better.
Which is fascinating because I'd like to explore that start of that relationship that you said then, in terms of, for anyone listening to this to be able to understand whatever industry they're in, relationships are key.
Yeah.
So first of all, can you give us some tips as to how you build these strong relationships of trust, where you can then get to the second stage of asking the kind of questions that I want to explore?
That's
Yeah,
a million dollar
I think that's,
question,
yeah, I
isn't
think that's a really good question for me. I think the reality of trust is absolutely key, and I think from us it's honesty, starting and in some cases being brutally honest with a client on why we can't work with them, and saying, look, in all honesty, there are these key issues here that are going to fundamentally hamper us to do the project.
So what sort of red flags would they be that would stop you, that would cause you to walk away from a relationship?
I'm not sure it's about walking away as such. It's more about, is what you're thinking, is what you think you want to do actually the right thing? Is it achievable? Is it going to get you what you want out of it? Because anyone can say, in our position, could say, yes, we can help you with that. Take some fees, and really in their heart of hearts know that it's a long shot to get that done, right? So straightforwardly looking at a business, understanding what the objective is of the shareholders, and then saying, do you know what, the time is not right. The market either won't understand what you do well enough, the business isn't in the state where we could transact right now or get the value that you're looking for. And that might be for any number of reasons. These are kind of commercial reasons. There might be client concentration. There might be dependency on the shareholders for the business to function. And if that shareholder then sells out, what will happen to the business if they then are no longer part of it? There could be to that not a strong enough second tier of management. These all kind of there's those, and there's probably half a dozen key reasons why you might look at a business and say, doing a transaction now is not going to get you what you want.
Right. Okay. So honesty is one of the key facets. What else?
Next point is, I think we're fortunate that we've done, as I said before, I've been able to do, and as a team we've done transactions all over the world. Because we live with these people, and I say live, it actually feels like that, because our transactions go, and the ebbs and flows of a transaction, because there's so much family and emotion and all of these things that go into these transactions, and a reasonable time is between 9 and 12 months.
Right.
We are actually in their homes and when we're in the last 2 or 3 months, we've got phone calls going back, trading phone calls with clients on 2 or 3 times a day, and they go over weekends and bank holidays and and Christmas and all of those things. You're dealing with all of that. So because we have that such a long relationship, we then have this becomes a friend. We've been there alongside them. We've understood everything that they're going through, not only as a business owner, but as a person, as a family, and all their family and all. Mm-hmm. And we know all of those elements. And sometimes family elements happen during the transaction that we're aware of, and we need to, and often become a counsellor or a sympathetic ear or someone just to bounce ideas of family issues as well. But from that becomes a long-term friend.
I mean, it sounds a bit of a pat marketing phrase, but it is more than the transaction to us. The EQ bit is part of how we brand ourselves, but essentially it says we're in this with you. We talk about it as being a roller coaster ride. You're in the trenches with them. It is very intense when you're doing a transaction with somebody. You see more of them than, or they see more of us than they do of their spouses and kids at the time sometimes, and it's hard yards. And if you come out the other end of that still friends with them and still able to talk to them and go and have a beer with them or whatever, then that's great. And I think that tells a story. And that for us is as much a measure of success as a transaction, a notch on the CapEQ bedpost, if you like.
Brilliant. So what are the common, and again, if we explore this early stages of that relationship that you have with some of your clients, you said a lot of it is about, often deals are about egos getting in the way, or some of those more emotionally illiterate behaviours. What are the most common mistakes you see people making at that early stages that come back and bite them maybe later on down the line?
Yeah, I suppose from acquirers' perspective, let's go from that way. So acquiring businesses, we work with listed entities, small listed entities that are looking for that growth to get them up in the FTSE. And so
they're acquiring
they're acquiring businesses to bolt on and going to the egos. And some of the CEOs are, it's like a drug of acquiring business. I'm doing M&A and we're buying this, we're buying that, and whatever. When we start that journey and we're clear with our clients, is we're happy to assist and happy to take you on that journey. But just before we even get engaged, what is that journey you're looking to achieve? What does that journey look like? What does that vision look like? And are you able to articulate that within your board and your management team? Do you know what you're aiming for? Because if you're doing this and you're trying to just, get out of your sector and do something completely different, what does that mean to your shareholders? What does that mean to the city? Are you completely gone a different angle, and how quickly does that take you away from what you're doing today?
Yeah.
And do the shareholders that invest in your business and believe in this journey, you've now taken them on another journey, how do you take them on that? And is there a connection between the two? Because it's very easy to look and go, you know what, I can buy that, I can buy that, I can buy that. And then very quickly, you've got a basket case that no one really understands what you do for a living, and everyone's trying to work that out. And I think that's, for us, is trying to put our arms and steer it back a little bit more, understand the goal, but also fundamentally making sure that the management team underneath understand that vision as well. Because clearly, if they don't understand it, what happens is very quickly you're acquiring something that the team underneath don't believe in it. Very quickly that starts to drop, and the entity just doesn't get absorbed in the right way. So it's key on being clear and understanding.
There's two sort of, just to add to what Mark's just said, there's kind of two components to it, I think, as I see it, if we're going to distill it down. That the first is that really clear strategy, right? Which is, and there's been quite a lot of research done on what makes M&A successful. So, up to now, we've talked about us working on the sales side with shareholders selling their businesses, but as Mark rightly points out, part of what we do is to work with people who are buying businesses as well, and that acquisition strategy, it almost needs to be quite dull. It needs to be quite structured. It needs to be, and where ego can get in the way of that is, I can buy that business, so I'm gonna have a go at doing that. Why, it's another trophy. A lot of M&A fails. That's just a statistical fact, right? And where it works is where it's done in a fairly methodical, fairly structured way, as Mark says, within the constraints of a clear strategy that everyone understands, so that when a business is bought, it's not a white elephant that sits kind of in a back room somewhere and nobody really understands what was behind taking it on. It actually becomes part of that journey. We keep saying journey as if we're on X Factor. The other bit then, where ego sort of doesn't help, and reading a room perhaps is really important, is when an approach is being made to a company to buy it, how you do that is really important to whether that's going to work. Because for a lot of founders of businesses, the idea of selling their business, if they haven't already made that emotional leap that they might have made if they were coming to us and saying, can you help us sell our business, it's terrifying to them. It's defined them potentially for a very long time. When they talk to their friends and family, it's a big part of who they are. They own a business, they run a business, they're the most senior person perhaps in that organisation. So going to them saying, we'd like to buy your business, or we're representing someone who'd like to buy your business, that can come like a sucker punch. So doing that delicately and with a degree of sensitivity is really important. And then making sure that the acquirer treats that target as if it's something valuable and important, rather than something that the playground bully that's going to come in and pick them up and chew them up and spit them out. Having that level of understanding and emotional intelligence about how you make those approaches is also key to those approaches being successful. So even if it is the right target, it can be done really clumsily, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, of course. I've got like a really strong image as you're both describing the nature of the work that you do, of the role of what Roman emperors used to describe as the memento mori, the guy who'd stand on your shoulder and remind you of your fallibilities, to stop you getting carried away with your ego. And to play that role takes emotional intelligence, a phrase that we're talking about repeatedly. So you do that successfully for lots of businesses, whether they're acquiring or being acquired. But who does it for you?
between the three of us, we're all grounded. We're all incredibly grounded. I think at no
we do
stage
it for each other, right?
We do it for each
the
other.
actual answer is we do it for each other.
But I think we're all grounded and all are very thankful for the position that we're able to be in. You know, at no stage is it lost on us of how lucky we are to be able to do what we do and work with some lovely people. And I think that just keeps us our feet on the ground.
Well, we've also got the benefit of the fact that we see a lot of mistakes being made, again, at arm's length. That's the luxurious position that we find ourselves in as a dynamic, the three partners, James, Mark and I, as well as our team actually, who our support team, who we have a kind of a general policy of openness and honesty, and if they think we're doing something that's not going to work, they'll tell us. Right?
So let me put you on the spot then, Doug. So what's the best piece of advice that you've ever passed on, and same for you, Mark, in terms of to each other?
That we've ever passed on?
To each other.
To each other.
Like in the feedback you've given each other that... I'm looking for you to role model emotional intelligence for us.
Yeah. Each of us have got our own individual uncertainties, concerns, whatever in the background. I think for each of us, I think Doug is more of the quiet and sits back and assesses and whatever. And I think there's times that we've gone, actually, you need to own this a little bit more, and vice versa. I think for me is just call it down a little bit. I think we, rather than the positive way, just come back from a little bit more of the positive. And then James is probably a blend of the two of us, depending on what day you catch him. And so I think that advice is just it's just taking the peaks.
We all have
of where
different
we are
tendencies, don't they? And yours is probably to act really fast on things, to jump in.
I also think
have that extra bit.
And I also think that and just the key to that point, actually, and I've never really looked at it this way. Each of the project, when we work with a client, two partners work with a client, which is absolutely unusual in our sector.
Yeah.
Normally, one partner works with a client. We put two on, and in actual fact, you bring up a good point. The reality is that enables us to assess all the time where that client is going, and one of us reads a client in one way and one reads it in another, not completely dissimilar that we read it, but sometimes we pick up on nuances that are going on, that actually there's something there that I read it in a different way, and we'll probably drill a little bit deeper than we probably would have done if we were doing it on our own, and you probably would have gone past that. But then having the third partner outside of that means we're able to do not internally counselling, but when we're going through where we are in a project, and we do an assessment every week as a team, and the whole team are involved in that, you're picking up some nuance, and the other partner will go, actually, hang on a minute, whoa, you said this, why is that? And if we drilled, and it will catch both the other two partners out and go, actually, there's probably something, we need to go back and look at that. So I think there's that element there of our checks and balances internally, which I've never thought about, but until you said that question. So,
but it's really, but I can see how that fits with your proposition of being an emotionally intelligent organisation, and because that isn't the most efficient way to do it, is it? You just put one client on or one member of staff with it. So
this is one hell of a journey. If you're on the sell side, the buy side, or you're raising capital for a good reason, you just want to get it right. And there's so much emotion that's put into these processes. We've just got to get it right for our clients.
So the nature of the work you do, as you've described it, it's not an easy 9-to-5 job. This is an all-consuming passion that you have to do it. So how do you recruit people to become and be part of your team? What are the characteristics you're looking for?
I think first and foremost, it is people who, skill set aside, because there's a core level of skill that comes with, doing the individual specialisms that we lean on heavily at times within a transaction. That client focus, that sort of willingness to not accept the first answer, maybe to be absolutely focused on what the outcome needs to be for the client, and to not be afraid to step up, proactively at times without direction when they need to do something else, something new, something different, thinking outside the box, any of that stuff. I think that it's more personality traits than it is, I think, specific skill sets. The people that we've got are really experienced, and I think, like us, they've seen a lot. They have a lot of reference points, I suppose, across. Our head of research, for example, is a qualified lawyer, which is an atypical education background for somebody in that sector, but it just gives him another reference point to use when dealing with these projects, which throw different things at you all the time.
I think the other key to this is passion. You just can't instill passion into someone. If they've got a passion for what they do and they enjoy it, it will then stimulate and grow. And I think the key to us is we give as much freedom for an individual to learn and grow as quickly as they possibly can. So going to that point, ask questions. There is not a stupid question when we're sitting with a business owner. I don't care what job title they've got. I don't care where they sit in their business. Ask the questions, because through that you will learn. The quicker you'll learn, and secondly, you'll learn actually. It wasn't such a stupid question, because the amount of times I've been in a room that you thought, what's the context of that question that's come from the team? And then someone answers, you go, okay, that was a really good question. But, there's never a stupid question. Just be in the room, be engaged. If you've got that passion, would love to speak and love to be part of the team, everything else, your core skill set and everything else will then bolt into that. And I think that's key to us.
So where did this passion come from for both of you?
Well, I ran a recruitment business and then went on to sell it. And then if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have made a lot more money, but that's immaterial. I think, so the passion of going through that myself, of going through the ebbs and flows of that process was quite painful, and I didn't do it with an advisor and felt.
How many years did you run the business for, Mark?
3.5, nearly 4 years.
Right.
And it was a husband and wife team that I joined on. And so, but didn't go through it. And just all of the anxiety and all of the different things that you go through at the same time, it was like, actually, this is a pretty lonely process to do it. Yeah. With that experience, then going into M&A and then doing it, and then over the last 18 years, just having that passion. And you know what? The amount of times we sit in front of clients and they describe their business, you're like, that's an amazing business. How did you generate income from that? And how did you get this idea? And now you've got 200, 300, 400 people that you're employing. This is amazing. And that story and understanding their businesses is just, again, it's like a drug. It's just, you just want to do it more and more and more and understand these businesses. And literally, and I know many people say it about their jobs, but every day is a learning day. You're never going to know everything about every company in the world. You're never going to understand how they're structured and how they work. And I think that's kind of where it was that inquisitive of, actually, I can give back. I've got a little bit of knowledge, and please don't think I've got all the knowledge today. As Doug said, we're always learning and always. Yeah, cool. But it's that passion and going, you know what, I want to do this for someone else, and I've learned a little bit. And then over the last 18, 19 years, I've learned a huge amount, and now can give back and go, hey, I'm going to be by the side of you. I'm going to hold your hand, and we're going to do this together. And I kind of know that roller coaster. I know that we're going to be in the queue before we get on the roller coaster. I know what the roller coaster looks like when it goes out the platform. I know the first dip we're going to get to, and this is what that looks like. And there's the first up, and I know the next curves and the bends.
So do you explain to your clients and that you've been through selling a business?
It's a big part of our DNA, because it's the same, but by coincidence, not by any kind of design, but James, Mark and I have all been involved in being invested in one way, shape or form in businesses ourselves. Part of why we do what we do is quite selfish. It's because we enjoy it. It's because we get a kick out of just the job and the role and the variety and all that good stuff, that the same reasons or different reasons perhaps that other people do what they do, but also the passion for doing the right thing by the client, I think, is the stem of that. Is the fact that we've lived that journey from different angles, all three of us. We kind of understand how important it is to our clients to get it right. It's so fundamental to our clients. If they're selling a business, it's potentially their life's work, and you do that lightly at your peril. There's some horror stories out there. I don't think that the industry is not full of sharks or anything like that, but I think we just take that quite seriously, because we feel it from within ourselves. We know how critical it is to our clients, and therefore how important it is for us for them to trust us to be kind of holding that in our hands with them on that particular point in its gestation.
As somebody outside of your world, what you're describing sounds so obvious in many ways, and I can imagine that I'm sat thinking this is common sense. You need trust. You need to have somebody that's honest who holds your hand. How much is it common practice in your industry?
It's not common.
Right.
Let's be honest. It's not common. The reality of our industry is driven by fees and getting to fees and what have you. Yeah. But there are lots of good people in our competitors, and that's always the case. But I think it's not front and centre, I think, of their organisation. And for us, it's front and centre. And having B Corp, and we have B Corp over our heads, and we're the first European corporate finance house to be awarded a B Corp, is huge. And that we've all got a really strong ethical backbone, and we've had that since we were running our own business and sold them, and then been in M&A for 19 years. So B Corp now over our heads now says we've got an ethical back, but we've got something to stand for that says we're an ethical business. But no one else is really shouting about it in the industry that we work in. But that's how we set ourselves out, and ESG and all of those things are incredibly key, and it's part of our DNA as a business.
Because the reason I asked you this question, it wasn't to denigrate anybody within your world, but it's more I'm interested that you're still in a competitive industry where you're tendering for work and you're having to compete, and yet you're talking a language that maybe isn't as common as what your rivals are doing. So it's more around how advice to anyone listening to this about being true to yourself and being and acting with integrity. Tell us how you do that consistently, even when it might come at the expense of a deal.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think we have the luxury of being in control of our own destiny because we as with CapEQ as well. We know we have our own business. It's our baby, so we have the ability. And I think as three partners who are aligned in our thinking, we also have the luxury of not walking that tightrope of doing the right thing whilst needing to be a profitable, sustainable business is not necessarily easy, but it's a long game. And I think a consistent pattern with what we do, not to try and make this sound like a business case, because I think at its heart it's we do it because we think it's the right thing to do, but actually a cycle of working with clients can go something like you start working with a client, you tell them that they're not going to achieve what they want to achieve out of a transaction. You work with them instead of trying to find them a buyer, you work with them for 12, 18, 24, 36 months. You then say, okay, we now think the time is right based on our view of what the market's doing and what the buyers are doing, based on where your business is at, informing that to where we think things will go, what the reaction is going to be. Now is the right time. You've then got a much greater degree of certainty over the fact that a deal is going to happen. You've probably got a more valuable business that you're selling, which for us, frankly, means more fees. And you've got a happier client because they've got more certainty. And that's really, the certainty bit's really important in this process because of once you've opened Pandora's box in terms of trying to sell a business, it's out there, and confidentiality is really important in these processes. But fundamentally, the emotions involved in the whole thing are so intense that you do it wrong once, and it's difficult to pack that back in the box and do it again later. I think that you're playing the long game. Then you're saying actually, if we're patient and we do this right, we'll be worth much more to all of us in some time in the future. And with that, perhaps an alternative cycle might be you think you're going to get a positive result from a transaction. You approach the market. For whatever reason, that deal doesn't happen. If you've given the right advice throughout and you've been honest and candid and worked hard, if that doesn't work out that time, that doesn't mean that it's a project that's never going to happen. And if everyone's still on the same page with it all, you don't know that in 12, 24, 36 months' time, you're not going to be able to do that again. And that then what was a loss becomes a win. And so if you play the long game in our industry, I think that brings results naturally. Do enough of the right things and good things will happen is something I've sort of sat with in business for a long. I can't remember who said that, so I can't sort of attribute it to anyone. It's not come from me, but I think if you keep that in mind in our game, eventually you'll just get a cycle of positive outcomes on both sides.
That phrase keeps resonating as you've been speaking throughout this, both of you, of like what you do in the shadows manifests itself in the light, doesn't it? That
Yeah, there you go.
How you conduct yourself when nobody's watching, in many ways.
Yeah, agreed.
So what would you say then, for both of you, is a relationship that you've had with a client, whether this is you've helped somebody sell a business or you've helped somebody acquire it, that you'd be happy to go home and tell your kids about and say, that's something that I'd be happy to hang my hat on?
Oh, Mark tells stories all the time. It's not just his kids.
It's not just my kids. You know what? Every transaction that has been successful or not successful, I think, and my kids going to the point of this is not a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
You know, my wife has taken some wonderful photographs of me around the world on some lovely holidays where I'm taking conference calls or I'm on calls or what have you, and so my kids have been part of and have been in the car when we're having conversations and doing that empathy piece or the counselling piece with the client, and they're sitting in the car going, who's this? And then I have to introduce my kids to my client, and and as my children have grown up, they've been part of those conversations. And I think they're aware, I mean, not aware of all of them, but they've been part of that journey because of that connection, and that goes to that friend, and they overstep from a client to a friend. Yeah. And I think they have been aware of all of those. Although the process is pretty structured, and we tell a client what it's going to be like on the first day and how we're going to go through every process and what that timeline looks like, and we articulate that from the first day we start with them, we work through with them, they know the journey. They're all unique stories, and although it's the same process, there's bits that you just don't see coming that just wipe you out in the middle of a transaction or the beginning of a transaction, or something happens.
Like what, for example?
I had a client I worked with passionately in North America, had a fantastic business, said to me that he knew the purchaser. And I said, well, let's explore the world. We've got to explore the world, and that's our view is, just don't go to the local competitor. We've got to look at the world and see where the world is. We went on this massive journey of flying around the world and went to Hong Kong and to the US and the UK. And in actual fact, we sold to Philips, which was based in the Netherlands, to an American business and what have you. And that journey went in all weird and wonderful ways. And at the time, a technology changed, and we were all looking at each other going, this is going to have a direct impact on value. What it actually meant to the purchaser was that was actually a positive. But did we know it at the time? No. What you automatically think, and you take an inhale and go, this is going to go wrong, it actually turned out to be a positive. And there's all ebbs and flows, and can be family.
There's really human stories in all of this as well, right? So it's not just about the money. And I've literally had clients who are selling their business because one of them got so poorly through childbirth that she didn't think she was going to make it, and they came out the other end and they rethought their lives. I've had another one who got diagnosed with cancer very late stage in a transaction. I've had another one that shared with me that he wanted to sell his business because his dad had died when he was 2 years older than this chap was at that point, and this chap didn't want to still be running his business at the same age. He wanted to just maximise what time he thought he had left, and he's still around and still thriving, fortunately. But there's more to a lot of the reasons why people are selling than simply I want to cash out, and that drives a lot of the passion, I think, as well, because behind all of it, you've got people on going through their lives. Stuff happens to entrepreneurs in the same way that it does to everybody else, right? And that's part of the whole thing, really.
But I think they're really quite powerful examples that people only share that when they have the trust. Yeah. And they know that they're in the company of people.
It does take something. Some of the stuff takes you by surprise quite late on in the process. Sometimes you start to learn more and more about your clients, and you realise what's really behind why they're doing what they're doing, rather than the sensible reasons they've given you right on day one.
Yeah. There's often an emotional driven logic before the logic that comes in. So my final question then around this is, what would you say that CapEQ is your superpower as an organisation? What is it that you do better than anybody else within your world?
There's lots of organisations that I can think of around the world that say they're going to hold you and be by the side of their client. I think it's ultimately it is in our core, it is in our DNA, it is who we are. Emotional intelligence is absolutely key to us, and I think if you're looking for a superpower, I think it's that ability.
I think our ability
to understand,
to know what it's like sitting where they're sitting in their seat. I think that we get that. Like I like to think like very few others out there who do what we do.
Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing such a brilliant story, and with that human message at the heart of it is incredibly powerful. When we finish now, we'd like to just ask a series of quick-fire questions. So I'll allow you to decide who wants to take these on, or one or both of you if you go through it.
Yeah, we'll go turn.
Unless you've got a really good answer in mind.
Happy to.
So the first one then is, what are the 3 behaviours that you insist everybody within CapEQ has to understand and live?
Behaviour or honesty, one. Secondly, don't be afraid, again, that behaviour point of going to no stupid questions, ask the questions, and self-belief in what you want to achieve, and having that openness to learn, and be emotionally intelligent enough to go, actually, there's a pain and understanding. Don't keep pushing if you're starting to see someone cringe or start and there's some pushback. Don't keep pushing. You need to understand there's something there, and we need to, maybe we'll come back and have the intelligence to come back at a later point. I'm not saying don't keep asking, but we'll pick it up later. So that empathy piece is absolutely key to us, I think.
Yeah, I think there were 3 in there, weren't there?
3, yeah.
Honesty, humility, and sensitivity. Maybe if you could pin it down, that's 3 words.
Yeah, very powerful. Well, the explanation of it was just as powerful. What has been the biggest sacrifice that you've made in relation to the business?
Hours, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, family.
Yeah, time with family.
In reflection, and I not laughingly, I said about, my impact on my family on taking phone calls when I'm on holiday and with my children, and I think that impact on my family has been huge over the years. But they understand the journey, they understand the passion that I have for what I do and how much I enjoy it. But I suppose that sacrifice is probably some time where I was taken away from my family, and my family is probably one of the it's probably the biggest out-front sacrifice I made.
Would you do it again?
And this will come across selfish, and it's not meant to, yes, because the person that at that given point in time, that person's and my client's need was just at that point in time, they needed that, and that may be 10 minutes or 20 minutes of my time that is precious to me and precious to my family. But at that point in time in their lives, you can't emphasize what they're going through and how much pressure those individuals are under. They just need that support, or that, and it may be a sympathetic ear, it may be just that little bit of advice that just gets them out, and they're in a good place again. And I can't stress that sometimes in this process, stuff is just immensely pressurised, and we're able to just, and have a key to just go, hang on, wait, we're doing this, we're doing that, we've done this, and this is where, and it just relieves the pressure. Yes, I would do it again, and I know I would, because it's the right thing to do, and it's part of my DNA in that sense.
What advice would you give to a teenage Mark and Doug just starting out on your journey?
You trust your instincts. It's a bit of a pat phrase, but at all stages in your life, you have to make decisions. And when you look back with that 20/20 hindsight, you realise that rarely is there a right and a wrong path. There's just choose and get on with it, I think. So and generally speaking, your instinctive reaction to something is the right one. And if you can get comfortable with that and get confident with that, I think that's what I'd tell a 16-year-old Doug. Be
brave. Not be bold. Don't be bold. Don't be bolshy, but just be brave. Everyone, no matter what title they hold, whatever their stature they sit in society, they're a person, and there's a person inside that. And if you can build that connection and be brave to have a conversation, just connect with people. The world is your oyster. The ability to connect, the ability to have conversations, to engage with other people, Every person in the world has got a story. If you can engage, if you can have a conversation and just ask some questions about them as a person, understand an individual, you'll grow throughout your life and you will go on and flourish, because we are people at the basis, immaterial of who we are, what title we got, what stature we have, we're all people. And if you can do that connection, and as a 13-year-old, be brave. Get out, start talking to people, start interacting, just being brave. And that, I think, for me, if I educate I would be a lot braver at a 13-year-old. And I think it's taken me nearly, I don't know how many years. Yeah, okay. Many years to learn that point of just everyone's got a story. Just talk to people and learn.
That's really powerful, thank you. If you could go back and visit one moment of your life, what would it be and why?
At the time I crashed my dad's car when I was 17, I'd kind of go back about 30 seconds before that
and avoid
tell me
it.
to slow down, yeah.
That hasn't resonated, has it really?
No, I don't think that's what you're after, is it?
Wherever you want.
Sorry, ask the question again and I'll give you a sensible answer.
No, that was a great answer.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay,
not looking for a scripted answer. That's a great one.
I mean, I was in the Royal Air Force for a period of time in my life, 7.5 years. And I think going back and reflecting on different points, and I can't really isolate one point. I think I was fortunate to be in Iraq and being in the mountains in Turkey and bringing the Kurdish families off of the mountains and feeding those, I think was a point of reflection and brings back a huge amount of emotion internally, but just seeing how mankind can be so really horrible to another society or another culture was, I think, a defining moment, and probably not a turning point in my life, but just it's a point in time that I can reference and go, I don't want to ever see that. I don't want to be in that position, and I don't want to see anyone treat someone like that again. And I think that goes to that point of being brave and understanding people who's got a story, and immaterial of culture, colour, all of that. Everyone's got a story. Just talk to them and just be that. So that goes to that point, I suppose.
That's a much more profound answer than mine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But they were both equally powerful.
Yeah,
I'm sure the
absolutely.
time you felt telling you that.
Really shallow,
I felt for you as well. Don't worry, I was with you. And the final question then is, what's the one piece of advice that you'd want to pass on to people listening to Owning It podcast? So one golden piece of advice.
And I suppose I'm going to take it back to that being brave. As a business owner and working with businesses, just keep pushing. You know, there are going to be some horrible, dark days, and there are people out there. And I think being a business owner, unlike us in the sense that we've got three of us and we can talk to each other all the time, you know, there are people out there. Ring someone and talk to them about because what you think is the worst thing that's happening in your business probably isn't. You know, other people have got experiences. I'll happily take a call any day. We've seen enough businesses around the world. I mean, very little surprises us, although, as I said, going back, we learn something every day. Have a conversation, speak about these things. And as a business owner, you support a huge family network underneath you, and you have that responsibility. And depending on what day you go to bed, depends on how much you take that to bed with you. And I think don't ever feel that you're on your own. You know, share it, be part of it, speak to someone else, because what you think is the biggest problem is probably not. And there's probably an answer out there. You just need to speak to someone. It's probably my better.
I mean, a lot of businesses, you know, going back to there not being necessarily right and wrong decisions, it's about making a decision and just sticking with it. And I think, you know, being in business a long time, a lot of it's just about living to fight another day. You know, things don't always go to plan. Very rarely do they actually really go to plan. And, you know, keep an eye on the bigger picture of the trajectories, right? You'll have some, you know, on a daily basis, you'll have some wins and you'll lose some battles, but keeping on is really important. And it's hard at times because there are dark days when you're doing this stuff, and it can be really lonely, I think, for business owners at the top. So just keeping going is a very straightforward message.
It's been a real treat for you both to come and share with such openness and honesty. So thank you very much, Mark, and thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you.